A series of Cobb Democrats virtual town halls. I'm Jacqueline Bedadapour, the chair of the Cobb County Democratic Committee. Assisting me tonight is Cobb Democrats First Vice Chair Matt Southwell. Matt has coordinated the technology tonight to make all this possible and will be on the dashboard for controls. We're speaking tonight with two candidates for Cobb Superior Court Judge, Ms. Kellie Hill and Ms. Danielle Johnson. They're both seeking to be elected to the Superior Court bench, currently occupied by Judge Ingram, who is not seeking re-election. So election day for judges is June 9th. There is no primary. The candidate with the most votes on June 9th will be the Cobb Superior Court judge to assume Ingram's bench. This is a nonpartisan election. There are no party affiliations. Therefore, the candidate for judge will appear on the Democratic primary ballot, on the Republican primary ballot, and the nonpartisan ballot. They will appear at the bottom of the Democratic primary ballot, so please be sure to vote all the way down to the bottom. Do not stop at the top. And please consider voting by mail. Due to the public health concerns, there may be poll worker staffing shortages during in-person early voting and on election day. This will likely result in a reduced number of voting locations, long lines, overcrowding, and increased risk of COVID-19 exposure. You can vote from the comfort and safety of your home by absentee ballot. You don't have to put your health on the line to vote. To learn how, visit bit.ly/V vote R remote. For more information on absentee ballots. The Superior Court of Cobb County is a court of general jurisdiction handling both civil and criminal law actions. It has concurrent jurisdiction with the state court over cases involving misdemeanors, contract disputes, premises liability, and various other actions. In addition, the Superior Court has exclusive equity jurisdiction over all cases of divorce, title to land, and felonies involving jury trials, including death penalty cases. The Superior Court of Cobb County has 10 elected judges who preside over jury trials, rule on evidence, hear motions, and render verdicts in bench trials. Each Superior Court judge is elected to a 4-year term. So let's hear from the candidates. We're going to start with a 2-minute opening statement, followed by questions with a 90-second response time, a 45-second rebuttal if a candidate or a candidate's position is called out by the opposing candidate, and then 2-minute closing statements. So Matt Southwell will be keeping the time for it. Let's start with Kellie Hill. If you could please introduce yourself to the voters. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. And Jacqueline, I too appreciate this opportunity to introduce myself to the voters. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Kellie Hill, and I'm currently a judge where I serve in the magistrate court here in Cobb County, and I've done so full-time for the past almost 4 years. In my capacity as a magistrate court judge, I sit not only doing magistrate court duties, but I also sit as a Superior Court judge, and I do so at the request and by order of our current Superior Court judicial bench. In that capacity, I handle the matters that are unique to Superior Court. I handle felony criminal cases. In fact, I preside over the major drug calendar and handle those cases from inception to a final disposition. Additionally, I also preside over temporary protective order cases, which are civil cases, and I handle those matters, and those are domestic related matters that are all deciding on whether or not a protective order will be issued, whether or not custody will be granted, whether or not support is granted in a civil matter. Prior to sitting as a judge on the bench, I was not a stranger to the courtroom. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, I served as a trial attorney for 25 years. 22 of those years I served as an assistant district attorney. And I was the director of the public integrity unit in that capacity. I also was a chief trial assistant district attorney where I supervised approximately 30 other assistant district attorneys. In addition to serving in those capacities, I led the prosecution in many of the notable cases that we've tried here in our state of Georgia. Specifically, I led the prosecutorial team in the Fulton County Courthouse shooting case. I also led the prosecutorial team in the shooting and killing of Kathryn Johnston. She was the 93-year-old woman shot and killed by police officers in her own home in Atlanta. That was in the public sector, the public sector. In the private sector, I served as the managing attorney in a civil litigation.
Thank you, Kellie. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Danielle?
Good evening.
Danielle?
Thank you for having me on, and I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself to Cobb County. Again, my name is Danielle Johnson. I'm running for Cobb County Superior Court. For the last 21 years, I've been practicing family law exclusively in Cobb County. I handle such cases as divorces and custody disputes and child support matters, termination of parental rights, establishment of parental rights, and also adoptions. I went to law school in 1994. In my third year of law school, I was court certified to represent victims of domestic violence. I helped those victims obtain temporary restraining orders against their abusers. Immediately upon graduating from law school, I went to work for the Docket County District Attorney's Office. I handled such matters as preliminary hearings, bond hearings, revocation hearings. I was also assigned to the Special Victims Unit, where I helped prosecute crimes against children. In 1999, I decided to follow my true passion, which is family law. I moved down from Harrisburg to join my husband here in Cobb County, and that's when I began my family law career. For the last 21 years, I've helped probably about 1,000 families transition from one point of crisis to a point of resolution in their families. The reason I'm running for Cobb County Superior Court is because I feel as if I could do more from the bench than what I'm doing now. I think that my background from the criminal prosecutor's office, as well as my extensive family law experience, gives me a unique experience that I hope to take to the Cobb County Superior Court bench. Thank you.
Thank you. So for our first question, voters, I know, speaking from personal experience, years back, we had a lot of judge candidates, and I didn't know how to evaluate whether a candidate would make a good judge or not. I didn't have a legal background and very little experience with the courts. So I was wondering, Danielle, if you could share with us your thoughts on what makes for a good judge and what should voters look for in background and experience to evaluate candidates that are running for a judge's spot?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost is you have to be able to listen to the people who are coming before you for some sort of relief from the court. Practicing family law takes a very, very patient ear. Not to mention, I've been a guardian ad litem since 2006, 14 years of being a court-appointed guardian ad litem by the courts to go out and do the investigation, to make a recommendation as to who should have primary custody, who should have parenting time, and what the parenting plan should actually look like. That certainly requires a lot of patience and a lot of a strong ability to listen to others. So first and foremost, you really do have to have the patience to listen to not only to the parties that are before you seeking relief from the court, but also to the attorneys there representing their clients diligently, hopefully. And of course, you have to have a full grasp of the applicable law that's before you as well. So those two things are absolutely required in order to be a successful judge on the bench.
Kellie, would you like to answer that question, please?
Absolutely, thank you. What makes a good judge? Well, a good judge is an individual who's committed to doing the right thing at all times. A good judge is someone who is fair, impartial, and willing to listen and make a decision based on the facts, the circumstances, and the law of each specific case. And the qualities that I would suggest voters look for when deciding who would be a Superior Court judge would be the following: experience, integrity, and the proper demeanor. I say experience because with experience comes wisdom. And when I've sat on the bench for the past 4 years, I can tell you sitting there, you understand it's not always black and white. And it's not always just an understanding of the law. You've got to have some wisdom to draw upon. And I've got 30 years of practice experience, and I also have 4 years on the bench, and I would be able to bring that to the Cobb Superior Court bench. I say integrity because you need someone who is willing to have the courage to make the difficult decisions. And proper demeanor, you've got to be willing to listen to both sides. You've got to be fair, you've got to be impartial, and you have to treat everyone with dignity and respect. That's what makes a good judge. And I submit to you that is exactly what I would bring to the Cobb County Superior Court bench. Thank you.
So, Kellie, that's an interesting segue. There's judicial philosophy is the way in which a judge understands and interprets the law. So laws are universal, but they must be applied to particular cases with unique circumstances. And to do this, judges interpret the law, determining its meaning and sometimes the intent of those who wrote it. So in plain English, can you explain your judicial philosophy?
Absolutely. My judicial philosophy is pretty simple. It is to operate a court that is under the golden rule. And I say that because I would treat people from the bench the way I would want to be treated. I understand and I appreciate the impact that I can have as a judge. I understand and I don't take lightly the fact that the decisions I make can sometimes determine what an individual can and cannot do for the rest of his or her life. And I don't take that lightly. It should be taken seriously. And so my judicial philosophy would be to make sure that I give the same thought process, the same consideration that I would want someone to give me or someone that I loved should we have to go before a judge. That is exactly what I would do. All parties would have an opportunity to be heard fairly and justly without judgment until all of the factors have been considered. That would be my philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle, can you explain in plain English your judicial philosophy?
Yes, my philosophy is also just to listen to the facts of the case, listen to the attorneys and listen to the witnesses, my expert witnesses and the parties before me with the same level of respect that I would expect for them to give to me. I've been practicing for the last 21 years. I know what it's like to be in the courtroom and try to do what you can for your client. I can't forget what it's like to be sitting at those tables, and hopefully the judges are actually listening to what you have to say and what your clients have to say and what your witnesses have to say through you. I would say that my philosophy would have to be to give each and every one in my courtroom an opportunity to be heard and actually listen to what they have to say before rendering a fair and balanced decision that is based on the totality of the circumstances, not just a sliver of the information. I would withhold my judgment until I have had a full grasp of the facts presented to me, as well as the applicable laws that I need to consider. My philosophy would be to make sure that before I say or do anything that's going to impact anyone's livelihood or life or freedom, that I need to take into consideration everything that it is presented to me and take my time in rendering a fair and balanced decision. That's what I hope to bring to the bench.
Thank you. Danielle, would you as a judge have any role in ameliorating the mass incarceration problem our society faces? And if so, could you explain what actions you could take in your role as a judge to make that situation better?
Well, I think that I would have a responsibility to help limit what is going on with the mass incarceration that is going on in Cobb County. First of all, I would look at alternative means of punishment outside of incarceration. There is probation, parole and so forth, but I would also look at the accountability courts as well, try to figure out, well, what led that individual to committing the crime to begin with? Is there drugs involved or alcohol involved or untreated mental illness involved? If so, I would try to encourage that individual through the accountability courts to actually seek some help and guidance, and also to give that individual the tools that are necessary to be a productive member of society once they are off of parole or off of probation, such as making sure that they have the skills in order to become a productive member, such as a GED, if they don't already have one, and also lean on some of the job banks that are out there for those who are on probation or is about ready to get off parole. So that's what I would help to do. That's what I would do to help, curb the situation that we have with mass incarceration right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kellie, is there what would you be able to do, if anything, as a judge to improve mass incarceration that's plaguing our society?
Well, I do believe that a judge can have the opportunity to help with the mass incarceration. And I will share with you what I currently do as a judge. On the front end, I hear bail matters. I set bail based on the legal factors. I decide whether or not an individual will return to court, whether or not they pose a danger to the community or to others. And if they don't, they are given a reasonable bail on the front end so that they're not sitting and languishing in jail, waiting for their case to be called. On the back end, I also would utilize the accountability courts as I've done. And I'd like to just share a little story with you because I have a personal experience with accountability courts. I had the opportunity to attend the Veterans Court graduation ceremony about a month ago. And one of the graduates recognized me, although I didn't recognize him, to be perfectly honest, and I told him that. And he told me, "You may not remember me, but I will never forget you. Because of you, I'm in this program. Because of you, I'm graduating and I am now studying for the LSAT to become a lawyer. I want to go back to my hometown and start this same type of program in my jurisdiction." So accountability courts, I know, are effective. They can be used versus incarceration where individuals are not rehabilitated. They can get the resources, they can get the treatment that they need to re-enter society and become productive citizens. And we would reserve incarceration for those individuals who are dangerous, who we don't want out on our streets. That is appropriate, and that is what I would do.
Thank you. What are the problems, Kellie, with the criminal justice system? Or actually, what changes do you think need to be made to better or improve the mechanism of resolving cases in the Cobb County Superior Court?
Interesting that you would ask that, because under today's environment, we're actually having to make some changes in our criminal justice system. And some of those changes, I believe, have proven to be quite effective. And I think they are changes that should be sustained in our system. The first being increased use of technology. When individuals can conference via what we're doing now, live broadcasts, or they can communicate via email, individuals tend to work matters out by consent. They can agree on the issues, or they can narrow down some of the issues that have to be dealt with once they come to court. And when that happens, then individuals can resolve cases more efficiently and more effectively at the actual trial calendar. The other change that I would implement is I would actually set a schedule and hold deadlines and actually hold the attorneys and parties accountable for those deadlines so that matters can be handled efficiently and effectively. And again, individuals are not sitting in court waiting for their matters to be called and heard. And families are not sitting and waiting for rulings on whether or not custody or support will be given in the matter. If parties communicate effectively prior to the court hearings, those matters can be resolved without languishing. And that's what I would do to help improve some of the resolutions that we have in the criminal matters here in our Superior Court. Thank you.
Danielle, what changes do you think need to be made to better improve the mechanism of resolving cases in the Superior Court?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I've been appearing before those judges in Cobb County Superior Court for the last 21 years. They are doing a fabulous job there and I hope to join them soon. But one of the things that I would be looking at is the docket control, making sure that cases are moving along as expeditiously as possible, making sure that we have standing orders and putting some deadlines in place, which so that each stage of the cases are being heard and taken care of in a timely manner. I like the idea of standing orders in the family law cases, and I will probably have to do the same thing in the criminal matters as well, as to the best of my ability. As far as another mechanism that I would employ would probably be a lot of these motions that are being filed in these cases. We don't have to have a full-blown hearing on. We don't have to have the attorneys come and make oral argument on some of these cases, such as discovery disputes, for example, or even if there's a contempt matter that has been filed in a particular case. It doesn't take a full-blown 2-hour hearing to determine whether or not an individual has been following a court order on child support, for example. So things that I can handle via without having a hearing, I would certainly do. I would also offer conference calls to speak with individual attorneys to try to help them resolve the case without even having to have a trial. That's what I would do to help with the docket of the cases.
Okay. And then one last question, Danielle, how do you define injustice, and what would you do when confronted with it in your court?
How do I define justice or injustice?
Injustice.
Well, the worst thing that can possibly happen, in my opinion, is someone to be found guilty of a crime that he or she did not commit. Or if someone is not being heard in such a manner so that there is an unfair and unbalanced decision that is coming from the bench. How I would handle that if I could would be just, again, going back to what we touched upon earlier, is to make sure that only information that is relevant to the case and has been legally obtained is actually going to be considered when making a decision. Making sure that everyone has an opportunity to be heard, and considering everything that's before me, and before rendering any such a decision, making sure that I have a grasp of the totality of the circumstances and the applicable law. That's how I would handle any injustice that comes to my courtroom.
And Kellie, how do you define injustice, and what would you do to confront it?
Okay. Well, injustice is when basic rights and liberties that should be afforded to all individuals are trivialized, abused, or taken without proper cause, without proper process, and an individual's life is affected because those rights have been violated. So if, in fact, I'm sitting and I notice, based on the evidence that's being presented, and that there's an argument of injustice that has been had, what I would do is the right thing. I would listen, I would deliberate with a fair mind, and I would be prepared to make the tough decisions. Judges sometimes have to make tough decisions, and I would do that. In this instance, if there's injustice, it could in fact mean suppressing evidence that will not be presented to a trier of fact. It could mean dismissing charges. It could mean dismissing a case. I can tell you, it just reminds me of the quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And what I will not do is participate in injustice. Individuals will not be judged based on appearances. They will not be judged based on where they live, and they will not be judged based on assumptions. I will rule based on the evidence and law and circumstances of each and every case. Justice will always be found in my courtroom. Everyone will have an access to equal justice. Thank you.
Now we'll move to closing statements, and we'll have Danielle Johnson go first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this debate. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with the voters of Cobb County. If you want to read more about me, you can certainly find more information about me on Google and avo.com. Of course, I've been talking about such things as experience and integrity and honesty and professionalism. And I can tell you that I have those things, but luckily I don't have to do that. You can certainly find more information about me just by listening to others on those websites. I can talk to you about having the notions of integrity and transparency in the courtroom. But again, I don't have to tell you that because I've been writing about such things in articles that I've been publishing years before I even realized that I would be running for Cobb County Superior Court. These are notions that are dear to me. These are notions that are extremely important to me. These are notions that I've been living and working with over the last 21 years of my career. And these are things that I've written about several years before I've decided to run for Cobb County Superior Court. What Cobb County needs is a well-rounded bench. And if you do your research, you will see that of the 10 judges that are currently on the bench right now, there are 4 of them who are career prosecutors or were career prosecutors before they even took the bench. If you were to elect me, I will be the only family law attorney with that background and the entire bench of Cobb County Superior Court. I think that with that experience, as well as my prosecutor's background, that I do have a unique perspective to bring to the Cobb County Superior Court bench that we need to have right now. Again, learn more about me, Danielle Johnson. And I am fair, I am balanced, I am good for Cobb. And that's not just me saying that, but others saying that about me as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kellie, your closing statement?
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you all for listening. This has been an opportunity that I truly appreciate, and I want to have an opportunity to answer any questions that you all may have or to provide any additional information. If so, you need to go to my website, which is www.electjudgekellyhill.com. Kellie is spelled with an I-E. That's Kellie, hill.com. I'd be happy to provide any additional information. What I didn't get to share with you in my opening is the fact that I was educated and received my degree at the University of Pennsylvania. I studied international relations with a concentration in international business. I also received my law degree from Rutgers University. In addition to being a criminal trial attorney, I also have done civil work. I am well-rounded, and I uniquely bring experience to the Cobb County bench, not just as an attorney, but also as a judge. And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, until you've sat on the bench and had to make those tough decisions, you don't appreciate exactly what it takes to be a good judge. But you can also go to Google, you can go to electjudgekellyhill.com, or you can simply Google my name and you can learn all about me. I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I would be honored to have your vote on June 9th. I'm asking you to vote early if you need to. I'm asking you to vote by absentee ballot if in fact we're still under self-imposed quarantine. Ladies and gentlemen, please come out and vote. And I'm asking you to vote for me, Kellie Hill, to sit as your next Cobb County Superior Court judge. A vote for Kellie Hill is a vote for experience and wisdom that matters. A vote for Kellie Hill is a judge that is committed to the integrity of the process, to be fair and impartial. A vote for Kellie Hill is, in fact, a vote, ladies and gentlemen, for the candidate who is at the top of the hill. Please vote. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So that concludes our virtual town hall this evening for the Cobb County Superior Court judge candidates for Judge Ingram's bench, Danielle Johnson and Kellie Hill. Thank you for joining us tonight. And thank you all for watching. Again, vote on June 9th. Don't stop at the top. Go all the way to the bottom to vote for the nonpartisan judges, the judge candidates. And please consider vote by mail, as it is the safest and most convenient way to vote during this public health crisis. We have other virtual town halls lined up for the next few weeks. You can see the calendar at our webpage, which is cobbdemocrats.org. Thank you and good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.